Pleasant good evening to you, to those who are now joining. Share the life, share the life, share the life. Share the live stream, share the live stream. As you now come in, share the live stream. Good night to you. Good night to you. Welcome to Enforcing the Constitution. Good night to you. Share the live stream to all those who are now joining. Good evening, good evening, good evening to those who are now joining in on this live stream. Share the live, share the live, share the live. Oh, hmm. Good. To those who are now joining in, tonight's show is basically on enforcing the Constitution. So, to those who are now joining via this live stream, I welcome you. My name is Dr. Matthews-Bey, live streaming from Guyana, Voice of the Nation. And also, I am on the GMS Live Radio Guyana. It's an online radio that comes out of the Play Store. Excuse me. Um, Tonight, I want to be able to carry on a discussion with you. And the discussion is based upon enforcing the Constitution. And when I say enforcing the Constitution, what do I mean? Enforcing the Constitution. So before I get into tonight's live, let me welcome those who are now joining. This is Dr. Matthews-Bey, Voice of the Nation, live streaming to you from Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. And also to those who have my application, online radio app, they can turn on to that particular app and listen to me via that. live stream through that application also too. So welcome once again. Black love to you all from Guyana to the Caribbean, or from Guyana to the Americas and around the world. What is enforcing the Constitution? How do we look at the Constitution? There is this understanding right now that the United Nations, oh sorry, is that the WHO, World Health Organization, bodies requesting most democratic countries to put their health ministry under their board of government to pay close attention to all the country's health sector, to either direct or to work with them. Now, let us say if you don't want that to be done here in Guyana, but the constitution that governs you already tells you that the time you sign that birth certificate, you already hand your child over to the care of the government. And not only that, but in the constitution, it tells us that the government has a right. It's already in the constitution. The government has a right to decide upon your child's welfare until that child is 17. So we're going to take a look at that first and try to see what is it that we can do in enforcing the constitution. Now, within that context that I'm talking about, the constitution also says that every parent has a right to safeguard his or her child from any outbreak or devastating disease, or however you may want to put it. But the constitution specifically says that. Now, in order for the de facto administration or for any government to don't have decisions upon your child, you have to enforce the Constitution. And your enforcement of the Constitution is your will. I want to use another example. Look at this event, this basic, not event, this, look at what is going on now with Nirvan Singh and the Director of Public Prosecution. Now, if we the people enforce the Constitution upon any administration, they will have to listen. So we want to fast forward much more greater. Look at what is going on not only in the Caribbean but around the world. We are now being up to date and up to standard with our information system. Everybody get to know that the information system is not only false, it is incorrect. It is it's not only incorrect, but it's lying to you. It's fake. All these things we're getting to understand now because of the social media. We get to know what's truth from faction and fiction. But what we have to do as a people is to enforce the Constitution. What is the Constitution? The Constitution was there. It derived from the indigenous people of the land. It means that, as I say, whatever you say and do can and will be used against you in the court of law. That is the Constitution. Whatever you say. The Constitution is the will of the people. It is a native language, it's a native tongue, it is a native culture of the land. That's the Constitution. Now, if you fight to enforce and uphold the Constitution, every illegitimate administration has to listen. They have to. If Guyanese wake up tomorrow morning and say, look, we don't want anything to do with Guyana anymore, especially for those who, I'm coming around to that. We don't want anything to do with Guyana anymore. We don't want to be Guyanese citizens. We just decide to say, well, look, I'm renouncing my citizenship. I'm no longer Guyanese. And then you hold the de facto corporation accountable after doing so. They will have to pay you royalties. But they're not going to tell you that. They're going to say that you got to register yourself, because in order if you don't register yourself, you got to pay taxes. If you don't pay taxes, you're going to go to jail, and all these fancy words that keep saying to people. But it's about enforcing the Constitution. Today, I've been responding to a particular social media post that comes up on my phone steady. Somebody by the name of Abu Abu, ABU, ABU. But here was the problem. The problem is that those who have been responding on the Abu Abu and those who are following him need to realize one thing. The Constitution is me. Take a very good look. The Constitution is me. Whatever I say and do must be law. That's what it says. And the only way that I can enforce the Constitution is if I now become aboriginal of the land or indigenous of the land. I cannot be an Amerindian. I cannot be a Guyanese citizen. In order for me to enforce the Constitution, which is me, enforcing that Constitution, the writings and the understandings of my forefathers and my foreparents, as a matter of fact, that is, I'm a full representation of the Constitution because I refuse to be called Guyanese. Hold on. Yes, I got him up again. Well, whatever he says, but this is the individual, and I believe this person is part of the government, but he's trying to reason. He or she. See, the name is up, and I like bringing people out of their shells. I'm Aboriginal. I'm indigenous. There's nothing to lie about that. I like who I am. I am the Constitution. The Constitution says, I, self law, am master. Islam. It is the culture of my foreparents. It is the language they spoke. Whatever they spoke, then it is law. You, which are Guyanese that are called, are now governed by acts, statutes, and codes under that law because they cannot try you based upon the laws of your foreparents. They can only try you based upon what you say, which is against the laws that you represent. And I could only represent people that looks like me. I can only talk about people that looks like me. However you want to say if it's racist or not, I cannot be race. I cannot be racist. I cannot be racial. I cannot practice racism. It's hard for me to do so. Racism is of a democratic culture. I am not of a democratic culture. I am aboriginal, original of the land. Racism is not aboriginal. As a matter of fact, there's when you come into the original people which are indigenous, then you get to realize there's no race. When you live in the system, then it is race. Because they divide you based upon culture, ethnicity that you call race, and religion. That's how you live. You're being divided within that same system. So enforcing the Constitution is try to help you to understand how to get how to get not only recognition but how to get your lives back on balance without being living in a repressive society. We as an Aboriginal people are entitled to the profits and the economic benefits of the land. That's what we are entitled to. And we could only do that by enforcing the constitutions. Excuse me. And I have Aboriginal brother on the issue. And to and to notarize what I'm saying tonight, we are too quiet on this issue. There's no remember at one time I was saying if you cannot go and protest, stay home and protest. So if you're being afraid to be locked up, well then if you stay, they can't lock you up for being staying home. Now there's a much easier process. Much easier. Give up the system. That would make the process easier for you if you give the system up. You just suddenly give it up and see how it will work for you. But you cannot give it up without a reason. You need to comprehend that if you give up the system, you need to start working for the sustenance of yourself and family. And how do you do that? Simple. By unity. One to the other and the other to the other. It works in a circle. 360 degrees that makes you a complete man. So it doesn't matter all the things that are being going in front of you right now. If you enforce the constitution, well, all these things would not happen. They wouldn't they wouldn't try to take your land away from you in Breeding Hoop. But they're trying to take away the entire Breeding Hoop to do that oil to shore gas line. These things wouldn't happen. They won't take your land from you and sell it back to you and give you a transport of the land. No, you'll have to. They will have to give it to you because you're enforcing the Constitution. The Constitution says that you have a right to live as an indigenous brother or sister any part of the Americas as you feel because you have lineage to the land. But they're not going to tell you that. They're going to say that the land belongs to the government. Because you know why they're going to say that? Because you're not enforcing the Constitution. Some of you might ask me, brother, but how do you enforce the Constitution? It's simple. By a simple letter or by a simple word that comes out of your mouth in public domain. So not only the public can see it, but the de facto administration they cannot say that you cannot do that. Nobody can tell you that you can't free yourself. It's only the only freedom comes only the only way freedom comes to you is if you stand up and accept that you are a free man. If you do that, well, then you're enforcing the Constitution. That's the only way that this can work via way of declaration or proclamation. As a matter of fact, that's the right word. The only way you can enforce the Constitution is proclaiming who you are. If you keep saying you're a Guyanese, well, then it cannot work because some people say, well, you need to explain. So a brother was telling me, but brother B, you need to explain why Guyana is a corporation. Guyana, before it became Guyana, worked under a three rule system: the Dutch, the French, and the British. the Dutch Berbice, the French Essequibo, the British Mahika Demerara. And each county had different flags. It was a corporation. They had entered into a contract by a way called a peaceful treaty in 1777 to occupy the lands of the Aboriginals, the Moors, to develop it and to pay royalties, which some of you are calling reparation. So they owe you what they have never seen to pay you on today like today. And when they hand the lands over to the corporations of Guyana, because Guyana is a corporation, which is now Guyana, because then it was British Guyana, and they hand everything over to the corporations of Guyana, which was now called Crown lands. The Crown does not own the lands, but they call it Crown lands, and they hand it over to a contract again, which they call it the Laws under the Lands and Surveys Act, which is acts, codes, and statutes to say, well, look, they have a right to distribute lands, but it's an act. Just to let you know, it's just an act. That's not law. It's an act, but we are being fooled and tell you like that's law. How can an act be law? You have to act and act. Why think they call those who act and act actors? That's who you are, actors. You are the subjects. You can only act based upon what they say. And if you want to retaliate or revolt and still remain in the system, that's where you go to jail. But they're not going to tell you that. They're not going to say, well, to do a revolution, you got to do it independently. This is the only way that they can act based upon your independent revolution, and they can come and sign a treaty with you, a contract. But they're not going to tell you that. They're going to say, well, look, you violated the act. What is the act? The Land Registry Act. No, no, sorry, the Lands and Survey Act or land distribution. It was renamed all the way down the line. And then you still can't get it. You cannot legally own the land. You could only be having a transport of the land because the corporation is temporary, it's not permanent. And the only way you can know the corporation is not permanent is when you enforce the Constitution. All countries are governed by an international constitution. All of them. And if we realize that the international constitution is not even worth it, because the governments of the day becomes a shadow government of a democracy. And that democracy is to bring about oppression, bring about systematic slavery, bring about modern tyranny and all these things. But we ourselves need to understand what is the first steps we need to do to enforce the Constitution. By enforcing the Constitution, we need to tell the de facto regime, well, look, I'm no longer a corporate citizen. I'm no longer belonging to your corporation, which is Guyana. So I declare I proclaim my independence as an Aboriginal or as an indigenous person, because that is who you are. Some of you need to understand this because some of you came to these shows and met us. Some of you need to understand that so was those who claim homage to this land. They came here and meet, and the thing is that there's always an entry showing that they came here and meet. And when they came here and meet, they came and meet a constitution. A constitution is a living soul. When you're dead, there's no constitution. So they couldn't kill all of us at the same time because it was hard. In order to own the constitution, you had to kill all of us. So they, the living souls, would have been the constitution. So what they did was create corporations. And those who fall under the corporations became subjects. It's like if I just touched down at the Borbis River mouth, or as a matter of fact, if I just touched on the Delaware River by the mouth by Georgetown, and my ship named Georgetown, I name Georgetown. The flag that I carry carries my name. I came to meet a people. I entered into an agreement with them. I entered into an agreement with them. And that agreement becomes a treaty. And they said, well, look, since you come to invest on the land, you meet a constitution which is a sovereign. The people who are on the land are not only the constitution, but they are the laws. Whatever they say goes. And when I say whatever they say goes, it means that their culture, because there's no religion, their culture, their lineage, their language, that is the law. And there is a supreme law that calls a constitution, which the treaty was being de- was being what the treaty was being designed upon. That treaty now becomes the constitution, and anything on and they have to obey that treaty. Anything off of that treaty now becomes acts, codes, and statutes. And that's what is happening. The Guyanese are governed by acts, codes, and statutes. They're not going to tell you that they can't sit down and tell you that, well, look, they're not sovereignty because they can't give you that information. They don't want you to know that they do not belong to the land, that they are creating acts, codes, and statutes to quote the laws. That's why it's hard because they came and meet a system. It's like, for instance, the word driver. When you check it up into the dictionary, the Black Law Dictionary, and when I mean the Black Law Dictionary, I mean the creation of words. You call it the etymology of words. When you study, well, okay, what is a driver? According to the law, driver is someone who operates a vehicle for commercial purposes. Commerce operates a vehicle. It didn't say a car, a bus, a plane, or a boat, a vehicle, an object or with motor operates that for commercial purposes. That is a driver because that person is doing commerce. A ship, a plane, a car, a bicycle, what have you. That ship is doing commerce because everything that falls under that ship has to pay taxes in order for that ship to gain money to give us royalties, reparations. Save the traffic police, which is a private entity by contract. The police force, it is a private entity. It's not a national entity, it's a private entity. Just like the army. The army, if you study the etymology of the word arm plus me, then you'll understand who they're talking about. So when the police stops you as an indigenous person, I'm operating a motor vehicle. It is unlawful for him to ask me for license, registration, fitness, and all these things because I am not doing commerce. What he's doing is obstructing me to travel from one place to the next on the land which belongs to me, which is unlawful because I haven't entered into any contract with him. I can now take him to court for breaching my constitutional rights. But if you say to him, when he stops you and you say, well, you give him your license, that means right away you verbally enter into a contract with him. That's why the first thing they say, anything you say and do will be used against you in the court of you, which is law. Because when you go in front of the magistrate, who's the administrator, you're actually giving them powers over you because you don't know what to do. So they're charging you based upon you. Based upon you being ignorant of the law, which is you. You being ignorant of yourself, that means you haven't awoken as yet. So they're charging you for defaulting you. And they're asking you to pay. So you got to go into your pockets now and pay because of your negligence. Check it. It's the same thing. It's like what they got me before the court for. The good luck for me, I haven't said anything. I restrained my rights to say anything. So they're trying to formulate a charge to capture me. The only thing difference is that I hire a lawyer. But if I had knew then that the Constitution, which is me, gives me the right to represent me, because if I am not ignorant of the law, that means I don't have to hire a lawyer to represent me because I am knowledgeable of the facts. When you hire a lawyer, is when you become ignorant of the law. So the lawyer now operates on behalf of you because you are negligible. So it is based upon acts, codes, and statutes, depends upon what the lawyer says, that either can make you be free man or you be imprisoned. But we need to, it's like, for instance, look at the story. We got a police female officer who was being spat upon from a lawyer. Look at it. Spat. He spat on the individual. He's not only denigrating her, he didn't only degrade her, he moved her from one position of statutes to, in stature, to a lower position, denigrating the individual. He broke so many laws, but because she is ignorant of the fact, she can't do nothing. So the director of public prosecution, listen to the word, director of public prosecutors. She is the sole person, Alima Haq, director of public prosecutors or public prosecution. She's the chief prosecutor. She now sits back and realizes that the young lady can't represent herself. She doesn't know what is it to be a part of a representation. She don't know the laws, although she's a police. Well, here what happened. I can adjudicate on behalf of her. I'm now going to tell the Guyanese public, well, look, I can't go ahead and charge Nivan Singh because there's no evidence. She can't contest that because she is ignorant of the law. She forgets or she doesn't know that she is the law. But to go about executing the law, which she is, now becomes a hard thing because she doesn't know how to do that. So we run along and we get another lawyer, and the lawyer, which is part of a bar associations of lawyers, which Ali Mahak is part of also too, because she's a public prosecutor, they wouldn't go against each other. They're going to bring up the case and they're going to fight it based upon acts, which is tricks, codes, and statutes. And if I don't have a proper reasoning, well, then I cannot progress in the case. And what is the proper reasoning? I can't represent the lawyer, the client. But I can tell the client based upon her evidence, because she's the person that this act happened upon, to challenge it. But how many of us want to sit down and challenge? How many of us want to execute Islam? I self law am master. How many of us wants to do that? When when the de facto administration put themselves or were installed in, the only way that they can come out of government is based upon the people. Again, the people is the law. But if the people fail to act, they will remain in government all the time. The people are trying to tell them, well, look, I got politicians to represent me. But the people fail to realize that the politicians is not the people. Ask yourself, put sense into your head. The politicians call themselves the government. The government put power, but who is the power? The people. It is the people who goes to the polls to vote to put the politicians into government, to represent them. But the only way the politicians can represent them is if the people demand from the politicians to represent them. If the people says nothing, well, nothing cannot be done. It is simple. You remember the time of David Granger, when the people wanted to rise up after the swearing in of the electoral process of the ear fraud and the rat. The people wanted to rise up. He said, no, 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 y'all don't do that. Let's calmly allow the law to work. But what is the law? How can you calmly allow the law to work and you're not educating the people to tell the people that they are the law? As long as you are alive as a living soul, you're the Constitution. The Constitution cannot act without you. But when you give up to the system, then you're dead. That's why the Constitution now, that's why acts, codes, and conducts, acts, codes, and statutes now governs you. It overrides the Constitution, which you're the living soul. So now you're being part of a corporation, which is a corporation of dead people. Corpse. Corpse corporation. Corpse. Poration. A group of dead people. And why would I say dead? I use dead because some people don't like when I say slaves. But you are dead. Physically, spiritually, and emotionally, you're dead. Because you fail to act. That's what it's about. You cannot act. That's why you have to have a lawyer to act on behalf of you. And you gotta got money in your pocket to pay the lawyer to act on behalf of you. It's all about acts, codes, and statutes, and adjudication. Because if you go to law school, you realize it's a bunch of crap. That's why when the lawyers now become admitted to the Bar Association, they laugh and they smile at you. Because they get to realize that the system that you're living in, it's based upon acts, codes, and statutes. Based upon you. You are the Constitution. How many of you know that you are the Constitution? When you go to the representation of the people's will, it says the will of the people. That is the only way that particular piece of law can adjudicate on behalf of you if you stand up and proclaim the will, which is the representation of the People's Act. What it is the will of the people. What is the sovereignty? The will of the people. The Constitution says that. That's why you have to stand up now and enforce the Constitution. Who is the Constitution? It is you, the living soul. The Constitution can't act without you. Nobody can carry nobody to court if you're not there. So to entrap the people, you have to say, well, look, now you are citizens to the corporation. So now you come now, you're part of a dead set of people. So that's what it is. Citizens of of a corporation, you're a dead set of people. And we can bring you in, and you're cheering on board into the same thing because you're part of a corporation. Now we tell you how you eat, how you live, what kind of medication you take, what kind of education you take, because education belongs to animals. They don't want to edify or educate you. They want to educate you because that's what they do. So if you don't realize that is what you're governed by, its acts, codes, and statutes, and let me go through it. Acts. It's based upon what you do as you are now a human being. You can only be a human being under the system. Outside of the system, you're not a human being. You're a living soul. They can't classify you. Classification of you is a human being. For me, no, you can't call me that because I'm indigenous. I'm a living soul. That's why I say I am Gavin Matthews-Bey. I don't want to be a part of a system that can classify me and I become their loyal subjects. I become enslaved to them. I don't have to pay taxes because the system again takes away your right. So you're paying taxes, so what? So the acts is based upon what you do as a human being, your acts. That's why when they take you to court, it's based upon your acts. You're the law. When they take you to court, it's because you fail to realize that you are the law. So they're trying you against your will, which is the law. So under the law's got acts you do. When you come to court now, it create codes for you, which is a hypocrisy. Codes. You're now guided by codes. They got all kind of fancy. What is the codes? The words that comes out of your mouth that you do not comprehend the meaning of. So they use those same words, which are codes, can be found in the English language, but they don't tell you the definition of those words. So that's why it becomes codes. And when you stand up in front of the court and you accept those codes, well, then statutes are now being laid upon you. You either be fined or you go to jail. For what? Not knowledgeable of the facts. You become ignorant. So if for those who are tuning in tonight, it's all about enforcing the Constitution. Who is the Constitution? The living soul, which are you people. You are the living soul. And I'm going to show you why I talk about acts, codes, and conducts for those who might seems to be confusing. Seems for it to be confusing. In English, they don't teach you the etymology of words. So you wake up today and you say, "Oh yes, I wake up." The word "wake," the only the, the only meaning to that word is to celebration of a death of a person. That's what that word means, wake. So oh, I wake up this morning. Yes, I wake up celebrating a wake for me, the dead soul. Mourning, to mourn for me. You gotta. It's like the word obia and obey. Obey derived from the word obia. When you check what is obey, obey came from the word obi, which is a Swahilian word. But now they teach us that obia means witchcraft. That's incorrect because we fail to read and comprehend the etymology of words. We are now being left to face the wrath of a system that governs us by acts, codes, and statutes. And we become weak because a man come up with a gun and he got a badge on and a color, uniform, the color of laws, and he done hurl you off to court, shackle you in handcuffs. But if you stand your grounds and you demand, now it becomes unlawful for them to detain you. It now becomes kidnapping because it take you without your own will, without your consent. But if you agree, like how I agreed from on the Square Revolution, I agreed to go with them. Yes. Now what happens with me because I now willingly give myself over to them. Some people say, but you resist arrest. How can you resist arrest? Listen to the words. How can you resist arrest? You must rest at the end of the day. Look at the words that they're using. I awake this morning. I awake in the morning of me, the dead person. And after a hard week's work, hard week's work, I am so weak. You never check it out? Ask yourself. Some people may say, oh, it got two different spelling. It's the same meaning. A word derived from another word. It has a meaning. Like the word democracy. How is it formulated? What is democracy? I tell you on this show, a group of people that are called noble, that is a minority, not a majority, a minority to rule over a land of subjects, a place of subjects. They are called nobles. That's what democracy derived into. And whatever they say and do becomes a democratic way of life. That's a dictatorship. But we do not want to we do not want to study the etymology of these words. That's why we're so left in limbo. Sometimes when we finish a court, we want to cry. Well, sometimes when the lawyer finish with you in court, the amount of money you don't pay for the lawyer, and by the time you the lawyer you don't lose your case, you want to cry. Because for all of that time you have wasted and nothing happened to it. Because you're ignorant of the fact and failing to comprehend where you are and who you are, they're not going to tell you that. Unless if what I'm doing here tonight, believe you me, they don't even want you to know that. They don't want you to know what I'm telling you. They don't want me to edify you on these reasonings. It's only for a group of people. Like the lodge, they sit down and discuss these things as I'm talking to you. These reasoning that I'm talking to you about right now, this is what is being discussed in the lodge. The Freemasons, the 33 degrees Freemasons, because that's the highest for them. They can't go above that because they're not living souls like me. I'm 300. I'm 365 degrees. 360 degrees, sorry. A complete circle. But they're not going to say these things to you. They're not going to sit down and teach you these things. So, first thing we need to do is start comprehending what is really law. Law is a living soul. That's you, the indigenous person. You are the Constitution. The Constitution derives upon you and how long you live. When you die, that Constitution dies with you. And your children take up their Constitution. But they're not going to tell you that. What is the will of the people? Check it out. The will of the people is to live free, to toil the earth, to grow the food that you want to eat, to have your family, to live in a house that you built based upon your strength from the forest or from the ground of the earth. That is the will of the people. Inalienable rights, the right to life, liberty, and property. That is the will of the people. It is the Constitution. The corporations could not form itself, it had to form under a peaceful treaty. Because in order for you to settle on the lands like those who have a date of entry, it makes you temporary. You can be deported at any particular time. That is why the word transport is been given to you on a piece of paper for the land that you live upon. You build a nice big fancy house and you got pool and you got cars, but didn't you know that that is temporary? You can be transported off that land at any particular time because it does not belong to you. You are a transport, you are a commercial entity. Your stock, you can be traded like how you are being traded on the stock market based upon your birth certificate, your passport, your social security number. All these things are being traded because of you. You're alive. For them, you're dead until when you're physically dead. I can't trade you unless I control you. If I can't control you, I can't trade you. It is simple. Check it. You cannot have a job unless you're being oppressed. Check the word job. It's an Hebrew word of oppression. That's what it means. Oh, I went to get a job interview and this, and they're smiling at you. You check their sons and daughters don't work. Their sons and daughters don't even have a job because they don't want them to know whether here you don't ask for the job. Ask yourself these questions. Ask yourself, why does a multi-billionaire, his children don't handle money? You never see them with money in the pocket. They're always flat or they got a card. You never see them with cash because when you think about cash, you think about a salary. When you think about the salary, you think about the job. It's program. It's what they teach you in school. Get an education, grow big, and have a job that gives you a good salary. Salary, the word salary means ashes that comes from the urn that keeps the ashes. So you have to go to work to earn. Put yourself in an urn. Salary, the money, which means ashes. That's why they call it fiat. But if we study these things, then we realize where we are. Some may say, but Mr. Matthews, how could we study it? I mean, I worked so hard for all them years. Now you want me to give it up? It is slavery. That's what it is. It's nothing but slavery. It's nothing but slavery. You know how much conversations I will have from time to time pertaining to these things. It's nothing but say one guy even turned and says, "So why you gotta sell your brand for money? Because you're living in a system. I have to render unto Caesar what is Caesar in order for you to learn. I gotta come on the internet. I gotta use these gadgets just to speak to you in a wide circumference. Instead of going to a group of people at one particular area, I can sit here and talk to you around the world. So you're in this is Caesar system. So you gotta render unto Caesar what is Caesar. So I can edify you. I can wake up your consciousness. Sorry. I can enlighten your consciousness. Open your eyes, your third eye. So your pineal gland works. So you can utilize more than 10% of your cerebral capacity. Then you'll get to realize that everything is joke. Even to those, last week I talked about, I had a session about the word Indian. And I'm sure, 100% sure that the brothers and sisters who call themselves Indian hasn't even going to look up the word Indian. It means indigo. Indigo means black people, according to the system. People of dark complexion, like me. That's what it means, indigo. So when you say, oh, I'm an East Indian, the people laughing at you and say, well, look this comic. He abusing black people, but he know he black too. What they did, they just mixed the words up, but it has the same meaning. That's why you're governed by acts, codes, and statutes. Black is a code. Indigo is a code. Amerindian is a code. Guyana is a code. It's part of a corporation of codes. That's what they trade. That's how they do business. That's how the fiat works. That's why you have to sit down and learn to challenge them. You don't have to get a lawyer to challenge them. Because the Constitution says you are the one to challenge them. You are law. You are the law. That's what the Constitution says. The Constitution means the living soul. You are law. If there's no living soul, well, then there is no Constitution and there is no law. Islam, I, self law, am master. They spent years establishing it, talking about terrorists and all these things. And like they didn't even know which one to choose, if it's Muslim or Islamic. Because they created religion. They went into our villages and see that culture and think it's religion. No, it's a spiritual life. But to investigate about it, we don't. From since we hear the word, it's a Muslim. It's a Muslim. Can you imagine how I had to sit down and explain this to my church leaders? Mm? Can you imagine that? Because it is to get the scare-tatic out of your brain and for you to realize that, well, look, it's nothing but a forfeit. It's a lie. completely untrue. It's like challenging Anil Nandalal. There's no law books. What do you think the law book is? Think about it. What do you think the law book is really? The law book is about reasoning in courts. That's what the law book is. They bring up a word. The word was challenged. It was in court. Who won the court battle and who lost? That's what the law book is. To read that, to facilitate your brain to realize when you go before the court, how would you challenge? And you have to give references to case, time, and date, which you call statutes. And you got to be able to reason the magistrate or the judge to make a judgment in your favor. That's how it works. Based upon you who gave up yourself, who abandoned yourself. That is why Ruction George Wilkshire said and always say, by her mind, because you, the people, fail to act on the will of you. She always say, oh, by my mind. What is good for the ganger is good for the geese. By her mind, you can imagine a ruling by that. Can't you think of it? Look at it plainly. She was saying that because of the reason given to her that Mr. Granger did not receive his letter on time and the affidavit was false, that she kicked it out. But here was the thing, it wasn't even challenged. And none of the lawyers decided to bring up that particular part of the information to see if by her mind she can change, but it wasn't even challenged. That's why her ruling becomes obsolete. You call it, what was the word they use? Res judicata. And a lot of us must hear the word and say, wow, I wonder what it means. You got to depend on the lawyers to tell you the meaning of res judicata. Simple, rest. The matter is rested. It was adjudicated unto and it's rested. You cannot challenge it. But they still went to the appellate court and challenged it. Now it's moved from the appellate court to the CCJ, which amendments was made in the Constitution pertaining to that. Who is the will of the people? You. If the Constitution says in Jagdio's time in 2004, in Articles 25.5 of the Constitution, which is an amendment, states that the only court, the last court to hear any electoral matters for the Corporation of Guyana is the court, is the appellate court. Suddenly it gone to the Court of Appeal, and all the judges in the appellate court are not saying that is a violation of the Constitution because the Constitution is the people. The people ain't saying nothing, so nobody ain't gonna say nothing. The people ain't saying nothing, so nobody ain't gonna say nothing. But the people gotta know the truth. What is the truth? Religion was created by man, not by God. It is man who sit down and create religion to take away law from you. You are the law. You are the constitution. That's why in 2013, when the Amerindians went, the people of the, I'm trying to remember the village, went to the High Court pertaining to the case and the dredge owner who had claims on the land in which they're living on was awarded to. They were trying to say, Mama, how are you going to do that? But the judge was trying to indicate to them that you have to declare that you're indigenous. You can't say you're Amerindian. Amerindian is a code of the system. It's a word given to you to identify you. So you become part of the system. The system allocates to you now to have two shows and all of that. So you become part of the corporation. So whatever the corporation does, you cannot complain because you would have already abandoned. You would have already abandoned your indigenous rights for ownership of the land by accepting a name to be called or to be identified as. That's why they call you Amerindians. You think you could call them Venezuelans Amerindians? Them Venezuelan indigenous people? Or those indigenous people from Brazil, you think you could call them Amerindians? Not only that, they teach about you because you belong to the system. You're in the curriculum. They can't teach about me. I'm indigenous. There's more facts more than anything else coming out right now of people of a darker race or people that have the heavy melanated skin. That's the word. So when I say that I am aboriginal, it annoys them. It annoys them. That's why when I come on the show, hold on, I think I gotta do the best thing, and I was waiting for him to feel comfortable. Yes, I was waiting for him to feel comfortable. You ain't gotta worry about what's his name? What's the name of the person? Abu Abu. Just got rid of him. But the thing is that we need, as a people, we need to comprehend where we are. Now is the best time to start pooling your resources. Now is the best time to start trading in your fiat money for gold and silver. On the 15th of this month, the US currency, which is the greenback, has stopped being trading on the international market under the OPEC, oil producing economic countries. You either buy the rubles, yens, or you either trade in gold and silver. Simple. And the best thing for you to do is to trade your money in for gold and silver because that is money. Gold and silver is money. The dollar is just a fiat currency which has no value. The gold and silver has value because that is an extracted mineral. I am pleased that I had the time to talk with you this evening. I hope that most of what I would have uh, spoken upon in length and breadth was something to be well understood. That at least you get a takeaway from what we had tonight as a discussion, right? Hold on. Let me see what this person says. This person says, oh, forget it. The camera is there right here. My apologies. This person says, Dr. Matthews, you are so smart to live in America and go back to Guyana to do security guards work. I love these brainless people. And why I say brainless is because they are. I'm still living in America. This is America. I'm not living in Guyana. I'm living in America. I'm Aboriginal. I'm indigenous to the land. That's my proclamation to the world and to the corporation of Guyanese. I'm not Guyanese anymore. I'm an American. You call me the Moorish American. I'm an indigenous. So I got to make sure that I repeat myself. I'm living in America. A lot of us don't understand that. If we start checking the historian of our creation, then we realize that we're living in North, and the place it called North is South. Because just the map turned upside down. But it's the entire America. There's no one president of the United States of America. They are presidents of United States of America. But there's the US, which you call the United States. Check it out. Check the news media. See what the news media addresses the US president as. They say, oh, the US president, Mr. Joe Biden. They never say the USA president. They say the US president. United States president. Let's check it out. Acts, codes, and acts, codes, conducts, and statutes. It's something we need to understand. Sorry, it's something we need to comprehend what governs us. And to some of you who always tune in, please, please. I'm reading a book now called The Color of Law. It is out there on the market. Check it out, buy it. It's a little expensive, but just buy it. It's worth the while. It's time you start reading and comprehend. Some of you Christians don't get vexed when I say religion is man-made. It is. It is. And we got to know. Look, let me tell you something. Let me show you how words are vital. If I say the word homosexual, some of you would believe a man who's a lover of himself, which is not a man. But if you check the etymology of the word, which is Latin, homo means man, sexual means it's a sexual active man. But they're using the words wrongfully. If I say that I'm gay, they may feel that I'm a homosexual. But the word gay means to be happy. But it's the context in which it is used. That's why everything is being used wrongfully. So when you go before the court and you say, and you tell the word that I'm gay, and the judge asks you, okay, you have another lover like yourself, and you says yes, and the judge laughs at you. He's like, man, I don't really understand what's the meaning of gay. Seriously, seriously. When we come with these words, and so, somebody will say, well, what would you say? What would you call a man who's a lover of other men like himself? I would say that he's an abomination. Period. Because to use words that are being wrongfully used to describe somebody, that is what they use against you in their courts, exercising your laws, which is you, the living soul. You got to get a complete comprehension of how things are around you. That means, yes, to those who are looking, you got to start redirecting your speeches. You got to start learning to use words in its proper form. The school system is not going to teach you that because the school is a prison. Check up the etymology of the word school. And then you realize that they have your babies in prison. So from small prison to large prison. Some of you live outside the prison, but you're still in prison because the minute you slip up, you're gone into the larger prison where they hold you indefinitely. Now they own you. So we need to start reading people. Whenever I tune in, tune yourself in, call your family, friends, tell them that Dr. Matthews-Bey is on the air. He's always talking things that not only make sense but edifying you. teaching you to stay away from the corporation of an enslaved system. I know it's hard. Some of you think of milk and honey, but yo, these people come and meet you. So which milk and honey you talking about? It is your lands. These things that you think about, that money and car and house, didn't come from outer space. It came from the earth that was freely given to us by a supreme being to live on it free of charge. Suddenly, when why do I got to pay to live? Are you serious? Why I got to pay to live? And who am I paying? You reaping from the ground. We pay you. Do you pay the earth? Do any of us pay the earth for which produces the stuff that we consume? No. We ain't even put him back. But we want to charge each other a fee just to live off the earth that nobody has respect for. That's why when we have natural disasters and all these things, how do you think these things come about? It is because the earth failed to connect with you. It's a spirituality. If the earth doesn't connect with you, well, then it got to wipe everything off of the face. It can't breathe. I want to thank all those who had the opportunity to tune in and to be a part of this program. Listen to me. Yes, I have blocked a few people. Abu Abu is one of them. He scares your mind because to those who are not visually conceptual of, so you don't have to worry, but you need to overstand certain things. That is a waste of time. You can't run behind slaves that are senseless more than you, or because they got a few fiat dollars more than you. So stay safe, be careful, sanitize yourself, wear a mask to all those who are joining in, and don't forget the little ones you take into public places. This is Dr. Matthews-Bey saying Black love is alive. It's real as a brand on objects and materials. It is there for sustaining of the Gavin Matthews-Bey show. I implore you to call a number, uh, i- uh, invest in the Black Love brand, buy the available uh, uh, buy the available instruments that it's on so you can support the foundation of the show and make these things real. The show depends upon your contribution and your patronage through the Black Love brand or contributions directly to the Gavin Matthews Bay show. I want to say thank you very much. And when I say that, it is to say you're rendering back onto Caesar what is of Caesar. You're using the platform, you're using the fiat money, you're using because you're showing that you got brains when you do these things. It's not only for the betterment of you, but for your children and your children's children. So I want to say to you, good night. This is Dr. Matthews Bay, and Cheerios for now.